Hey everyone, it is Justin here with the Podcast Dojo, doing another abandoned video. Now you're probably saying, that's South Park Mall, that's not abandoned, and there's cars in the parking lot. Well, what if I told you that this was not the first mall in the Colonial Heights, Petersburg area? So why don't you join me and we'll go explore the abandoned place we will be talking about today. For today's abandoned place, we are going to be talking about Walnut Mall in Petersburg, Virginia. This was one of the first malls to open up in the Central Virginia area, opening in 1964, located in the ever-growing Crater Road area. The mall had two anchor stores, Tallheimer's, which I talked about in my Cloverleaf Mall video, and J.C. Penney's. Rucker Rosenstock's was located in the central strip next to Penney's for years. At one point, Petersburg was a shopping metropolis for Southside Virginia, despite having a population of only 39,000 people. It was in the early 70s when the mall was at its peak, even being advertised as a weather-controlled shopping center. Several stores from downtown Petersburg even moved into the mall. There was even a grocery store and a post office. I don't think I've ever seen a grocery store or a post office inside a mall. And like most malls, there was a movie theater. The mall mostly had its 60s and 70s decor like globe light fixtures, wooden benches, and white circular planters. Very minor renovations were done in the 80s, such as pastel banners and tubular metal rods. The movie theater moved further down the road in 1985, but there were still many stores inside the mall. There were now national chains such as Radio Shack, KB Toys, Walden Books, Foot Locker, and Pearl Vision Center. The mall would start to see its downfall in the late 80s when South Park Mall was built in Colonial Heights and opened in 1989. South Park Mall was located about 10 miles away from Walnut Mall. South Park Mall was about 800,000 square feet and could house 75 stores, versus Walnut Hill's 300,000 square feet and could only house about 30 to 35 stores. One of the aspects that killed Walnut Hill Mall was lack of renovations and size. Most of the stores either moved into South Park Mall or in the South Park area. In fact, if you look closely in this picture, you can see Koreana, a Korean restaurant here in the mall. But here you can see it is on South Park Boulevard. By 1991, the mall was completely vacant, literally nothing but a shell that once was and was boarded up. And now I'm going to do something different that I haven't done in previous videos. I'm going to talk about what I think would happen if the mall had still been there. For those of you who do not live in the area or follow the local news, Petersburg, Virginia is in a lot of trouble financially. I think having Walnut Mall still open would have helped stimulate their economy. More than likely not a cure from it, but it at least would have helped. Now I'm saying this is a what if scenario, and that what if scenario is what if South Park Mall wasn't built. But honestly, South Park Mall isn't what it used to be. I remember in the early 90s I used to go there with my family every Saturday, and it was the place to be. Now I think the only thing keeping the mall alive is the fact that there's a military base nearby. And I think that would have also kept Walnut Hill alive. However, I think malls in general are just becoming a thing of the past, with people being able to shop online at places such as Amazon and eBay. It's kind of sad really, because I enjoyed the whole mall shopping experience. It's a funny story why I decided to cover Petersburg Mall, because I didn't even know it was there until about a month ago. I was talking to someone about wanting to do abandoned videos, and I mentioned doing Cloverleaf Mall. Said person told me that Cloverleaf Mall was not abandoned and was still open. Well, while trying to prove to them that Cloverleaf was indeed abandoned, I found a list of abandoned malls throughout the United States and saw the Walnut Mall. And I thought to myself, Petersburg had a mall? Now before we wrap up this video, I'm going to show you what the mall is now and where the movie theater at the mall used to be. After that, I was able to have my grandmother share her experience of going to Walnut Mall, as she frequented it a lot in the mall's prime years. So we are here at Foodline, which was once the Petersburg Mall, or Walnut Mall. It's really hard to believe that this little strip mall was once home to about 35 stores. Zoom in a little bit here. Man, I mean, and I just got out of the Foodline. I was even trying to wrap my head around how many stores were there. And how it's just hard to fathom that this was once the home to many people's first jobs, first dates, family outings. See, this is why I do these abandoned videos. It's just so cool to dig up history. And how so many people didn't even know this was once a mall at one point. Cool stuff. So give me 1 second, and we are going to go drive to what used to be the movie theater. And here we are, the Walnut Hill movie theater. This movie theater actually moved into the South Park Mall, and of course is expanded into Regal 16 that we see today. Let's get a little closer look. A little better look. Cool stuff. Actually, I knew people. My friend's mom actually said this was where her first job was. She had a summer job working at the movie theater. Yeah. Pretty cool. I do want to make something clear though. When I do these videos where we actually go to the location, I want to make something clear that my point is to document and not tamper with or destroy. Alright, so for the first time in my abandoned videos, I actually have someone here with me who has been to this abandoned location. Not since it was abandoned, but when it was still active. So, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually lived near the mall?
We lived behind the mall. Your grandfather went to Vietnam, and there were apartments behind the mall, and your great-grandparents were living back there. So we decided to move in. And I was excited because the mall was there, and it was new.
So was it a really busy mall when?
Yes, it was, because there weren't a lot of malls around, and certainly in Petersburg it was the only mall. And it was the only mall in Colonial Heights, too. That was the mall. And it was very pretty.
I did see pictures of it while it was abandoned, and even though, there was no active stores in there or anything, it looked like it was a very pretty mall.
It was. And people dressed up when they went to the mall.
Well, I know it opened up in 1964, so very different time then.
Oh, very different times.
Where people did get dressed up when they went.
Right.
So, I know there was some restaurants in there. Did it have a traditional food court in there, like?
No, it did not. It had 2 restaurants. And I don't remember their names, but I remember one served fish, and it was delicious. And that was a treat to go there and eat there.
Well, because actually one thing I thought was cool, Coriana, that place that's over in South Park Boulevard, actually used to be in there. When I saw pictures, I saw there was the same neon sign.
Oh, neat.
But that must have been there much later.
Oh, yeah, it must have been.
So in my video, I said my opinion on what if I think South Park Mall had not been built. What would the future of Petersburg Mall be? And what do you think it would be? Do you think it'd still be there?
I don't quite know what you mean.
Well, what I mean is, so the Walnut Hill Mall ultimately met its downfall because South Park Mall was built, and it was much bigger, had more updated renovations.
Right.
So, in just a what-if scenario, had that mall not been built, do you think Walnut Hill Mall would still be there?
Yes, because I think they might have expanded it. I can't remember his name now, but I remember one of the men who owned the mall. And they really had hands-on with that mall. And I think he did very well with it. And I'm wondering if he had expanded it, if there would ever have been any need for the other mall.
Yeah, more than likely not, because when I did my research, the Walnut Mall was 300,000 square feet. The other one's 800,000.
Right, so you can see the difference.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like in my video, I think it would still be there.
Yes, I think you're probably right.
So, if you don't remember the exact year, that's fine. But like, when was the last time you went there? Was it still as busy like in later years?
No, and it began to look a little seedy, and all the wonderful. There was a Tallheimers there, and there was a Miller and Rose, and those were the two big department stores in this area, and they were closing. And once you knew they were closing, they used to say there were two end malls that held them all together, and then they
The
had
anchor stores.
The anchor stores. And once they left, then you knew that the poor mall was doomed.
You knew it was only a matter of time?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They had other stores that went in. They had a grocery store, and they had different stores, but it was never the same again.
No. And it's too bad that the shopping mall is just almost becoming to be a thing of the past, because I really enjoyed the mall going experience.
I know it. And I don't know if you want me to say this, but do you remember when the new mall opened up here? We had a great time as a family in that mall.
Yep, every Saturday.
Mm-hmm. We would go up there, we would get something to eat, we would walk around, we would look at what was going on. And remember, they would have different things going on in the middle of the mall.
Mm-hmm.
They had fashion shows and all that. And I think that's what drew people in. That's what they liked.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a wonderful thing in their time. But I think now you're right. They are a thing of the past.
Just with online shopping, why do you need to leave the house?
I know it. I know. And I think that the novelty wore off. It was an enormous novelty initially, because you had to go to Richmond to do any kind of shopping at all. And that meant getting in the car, and that was...
It's about a 30-minute drive from here.
Yeah, it is. And not only that, but, they had stops along the highway because they were trying to pay for 95. So you'd stop and you'd pay, I don't know how much money you'd pay.
Oh, like a toll?
Yeah, a toll booths along the way. And boy, that you didn't have to go up to Richmond and go through those toll booths was just a treat. You could just stay here and go to the mall here. And so that really worked.
Well, that was interesting that you said, because that's also something I found in my research, that there used to be tolls along here.
Yes, they did.
And eventually they just got rid of them.
Yeah, they did. Well, they paid for their part of 95, which they had to pay for. And those tolls paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
You could even get books. You could buy books that had like little chits in them, and you would hand in 50 cents to the toll booth, if you didn't want to pay money.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
All right, well, is there anything else you'd like to add to? Any other memories you had of the mall?
No, I think the memory that I have of the mall, it was just a lot of fun to go up there with my children and my mother and dad who lived close by. And it was a big treat,
Mm-hmm.
And I have fond memories of it.
I really wish I had been able to go see it myself.
I know it.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this.
You're very welcome.
So that was my review of Walnut Mall. Really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And if there's ever a way I can actually go to these abandoned places, I definitely want to. But like I said, I want to make something clear that I'm only here to document, not to tamper with or destroy or even trespass. So here we go. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time.